So today I want to talk about accelerating your business. Of course, everyone wants their business to grow, but in many ways, it's become more of a challenge now in this world that's always changing, that's quite disruptive. And I want to talk about three things that you can do to accelerate your business in this fast-changing world. Towards the end of the webinar, I'll also tell you about a new program that my mate Shane Kempton and I are running. Initially in Perth, it's called Business Accelerators, and I'll tell you a little bit about that at the end of the webinar. The topic from today's webinar is based on some of the things that we're going to be talking about in the Business Accelerators program. So let me give you very quickly a broad overview of how the world has changed. And I'm going to do this quickly, and then we'll look at three specific things that you can do in your business or in your team to accelerate it and make sure that it continues growing. So first of all, let's look at what happens to businesses over time and how businesses grow over time. So this is a typical business growth curve, and this has always happened. It's just that it's now got a lot faster. So typically a business starts off in this fast growth curve as it's a startup company. And I'll explain what FF and F means. So it starts off in this FFF growth spurt. And then it gets to a point, there's not necessarily a specific point, but there's a time that the business continues to grow, but maybe not as quickly. So it's a bit slower, and it gets into this phase which I'll call SBE. And you might recognize that in your business, especially if you've been established for a while, you may realize that it's not growing as fast as it used to, and it's not quite plateaued, but it's certainly the growth is a lot slower, and it's a lot harder to accelerate it. And then you get to this kind of disruption point or decision point, and either the decision, you make the decision yourself, or the decision's made for you from external forces, that you've either got to decide that if you're going to keep going on that SBE curve, then you're eventually not going to survive. But you can make the decision that you're going to become FFF again and accelerate your growth again. So what I want to do today is give you three ideas that will help you when you get to this decision point here, rather than just do nothing and eventually wither away and die, that you can actually make a proactive decision to become FFF again. So FFF is fast, flat, and free. And that's what's happened to our world at the moment. Our world has become faster, flatter, and freer. So it's become faster because of technology. Technology is faster and is making our world faster. Changes become faster. Innovations happening faster than ever before. Flatter is that we've just broken down hierarchies between people, within organizations, between businesses and customers, between parts of the world, because we're much more socially connected now. We don't have the same hierarchies we used to have. And things that used to cost a lot now cost a lot less, because things that were physical have become digital. It's easier to collaborate and create things of value at a much lower price, and also for people to band together and have greater buying power. So that's what's happened to the world. If we look at fast, flat, and free as being where the world is heading, and that's positive, then the opposite of that is slow, bumpy, and expensive. And that's the SBE that I was talking about. And if you've been in business for a while, there's a risk that without even thinking about it, maybe your business has become slower, bumpier, and more expensive. So it's become harder to do business, but part of that is because that's how your business has morphed, and it's turned into what started off being fast, flat, and free to becoming slow, bumpy, and expensive. And you can choose whether you become fast, flat, and free again. Let me give you an example. I was speaking at a conference of builders last week, and I was talking about this idea, this concept that maybe what you've got isn't the best anymore, and it used to be best practice, but isn't anymore. And one of the attendees came up to me afterwards. He's a builder, and he and his son run a small building and construction firm. And he said that it used to take him typically 90 minutes to do a quote for a client. And that just to do the paperwork to send out a quote, not because he was doing it by hand, but because that's all the level of detail that went into it. And he and his son were talking, and they said there must be a better way. And his son said, "Look, Dad, there must be an app for this." And sure enough, they found this app called Quotient, which is available not just for builders, but for all sorts of businesses. And now he says that his quoting system has gone from 90 minutes to 5 minutes. So now within 5 minutes, he can do a quote that used to take him an hour and a half before. And it's completely transformed his business. He said he was almost ready to retire because business was getting so hard. He was just going to hand over the business to his son. But now he's really actively working in it because that whole bunch of paperwork that he used to do can now be done in 5 minutes. And I reckon he's lucky because the 90 minutes was just unmanageable. But I reckon if it took him 30 minutes to do a quote, then they may not have even looked for the app because they'd have said, well, 30 minutes is okay. We can get by with that. But the app does much more than just reduce the time in quoting. It provides all options for the client so they can pick and choose. They can pay online. He, as the provider, can check how many times the client has opened the quote. Clients can send questions straight through from the quoting system and he can respond to them immediately. It's a much better system, and he did it by necessity, but there may be things that you're doing in your business that you may not realize are slow, bumpy, and expensive, and there may be a fast, flat, and free alternative available. In fact, there's this quote which has been attributed to a number of people. Mark Twain's one of them. The one that seems to the most likely is Josh Billings. And he says, "It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so." Okay, so coming back to this growth curve, how can we, when we get to this decision point, and hopefully we make that decision ourselves, how can we become faster, flatter, and freer than we have been? Now, if your business is just starting up, you may think this is not relevant because you're already fast, flat, and free. And if that's true, great. Maybe you don't need to make this decision just yet, but it's still useful to know the sort of things that are going to keep you going on that fast, flat, free curve. And I reckon there are 3 business accelerators, 3 things that you can tweak or turn to help accelerate your business. And it's these 3 things here. So first of all, getting more out of yourself and your team. So this is your talent, and I'll explain what team means. It's a little bit broader than what team has meant in the past. Then it's about the tools and resources, and I'm not just talking about actual software tools or physical tools. It's about the business tools and the systems that you use within your business to accelerate it. And lastly, it's about the future. It's understanding the bigger context in which you're operating, the trends and the technology that are shaping our future. So we're going to talk about all 3 of these things. Because we've only got a limited amount of time, obviously we're not going to go into depth in all of them, but what I'd like to do is give you a little bit of an idea for each one of them. And in particular, when we come to the second one, I've got a little bit of an activity for you to do as well. The other 2 we won't cover in as much detail, but just to give you a little bit of a taste of one of the tools or resources, let's actually do this as an activity within the webinar. So let's start with the first one, which is about talent, getting more out of yourself and your team. So I've got a question for you here, which I'd like you to answer in the question box. I'm going to share 3 things here, and I'm going to ask you, what do these 3 things have in common? Number 1 is Amazon Prime. So, Amazon.com. Prime is this membership service where people pay $99 a year and you get access to free shipping and special prices and access to special sales that normal Amazon customers don't have. So that's number 1. And the second one's Gmail, which is Google's free email service, which millions of people around the world use. I use it myself as part of my Google apps. And the third one is McCafe, which is McDonald's for breakfast. So what do those 3 things have in common? So I'm going to stop now and wait to see what people type in the question box. They're all part of a bigger company. That's one thing. That's right. That's not the answer I'm looking for. Same product for all or consistency for all clients? Okay. So I think that's saying a consistent product that's being offered for all clients. Okay, that's true. It's not the answer I'm looking for. Innovation. Yeah, so they're definitely innovative ideas. They're very much innovative ideas, and that's part of the answer I'm looking for. So let me tell you the real answer, the one specific answer that I was looking for in here. Okay, so somebody else says, Wendy says, have a base product that everyone can grow from. Yeah, that's right. So they're all based on something which was a flagship product, and now this is like an offshoot of that. But the other thing about all of these three things, which not many people know, is that all of those three ideas, the ideas for those products, were came from employees of the company. They didn't come from the managers. They didn't come from an R&D department. They were invented by employees. So Amazon Prime came from an employee who suggested that a membership service would be a good idea, just through their online suggestion box. Gmail was created by Google employees when they were taking their 20% time, which Google used to offer. They used to offer Google employees at 20% time to do anything you like, 20% of your working week. So basically, one day a week to do anything you liked, and somebody invented Gmail. McCafe was the idea came from a McDonald's franchisee in Melbourne, in fact, and now it's become a worldwide phenomenon. So the point I want to make here is that your business growth doesn't have to come from you as a business leader or the business owner. It doesn't have to come from senior management. It doesn't have to come from a research and development department that creates the brand new iPhone. It actually comes from everybody. And innovation is now everybody's business, and innovation is going to lead to your business growth. So specifically or broadly, there are four groups of people who should be innovating. One is you as a leader, the leader, and it could be the business owner, it could be the leader of your team. And then it's your team, so the people around you. So all those three examples I showed you earlier came from team members. And then it's your customers as well. So more and more now, people businesses are inviting their customers in to be part of their innovation program. And I don't just mean coming in to do a focus group, but they're actually integrated into your business processes. And then the rest of the world. So more and more now, there are options like crowdfunding, crowdsourcing, outsourcing, where you bring other people into your business from outside your four walls, or the people who are officially employed within your business, to be part of your business growth. So now, each of these we could run a whole webinar on, so let me not do that. But when you start thinking about where's your business growth coming from, I'd like you to ask that question, like who are the people in your neighborhood that you can involve in your business growth? Okay, so let's move on to the second one. I'd love to talk more about that first one in more detail, but just for time, let's do the activity in this second one. So the second area is the resources that you've got for your success. So, and resources also also refer to your systems and your processes and what you do to innovate, the way that you manage productivity, your workplace, and so on. So in other words, this is all your internal stuff in your business that makes a difference in your business growth. So rather than me talking about all of this in a whole bunch of detail, let's actually do this. Let's do this as an activity. So I'd like to know what you'd like to achieve in the next 90 days. Please don't type this in the question box, because the way I'd like you to do this is go to askgihan.com in your web browser, and it's a place that it's like a public bulletin board. In fact, let me bring that up now. And I'll show you the way I'd like you to do this. So coming up on your screen now, you'll be able to see this. And if you go to askgihan.com, you'll see this public bulletin board. And if I say, okay, what would you like to achieve in the next 90 days? So I'm running this webinar in early October. So it's kind of like roughly before the end of the year or before Christmas. And what I'd like you to do is double click anywhere in there. And where it says title, write your name. So let's say Gihan, publish a book. Okay, and that's it. And that's all you need to do. So if you don't want to say who you are, that's okay. That's not a problem. You can leave it anonymous as this person has done. So a new online program sold and successful. So just let me give you a minute to share some ideas here. And of course, this is going to be public. So if it's something that you want to keep confidential, then just make sure you anonymize it enough. Okay. I can see some coming through. So we've got Philippe who wants to write and publish more articles. Robert, his new online program sold and successful. Okay, good. As you can see, more things coming in. So So I'll leave it open for another 30 seconds or so to give you the chance to share. Okay, so Ross has published 3 full programs. Oh, training programs, good. Okay, good. I reckon that's enough. So actually someone says use Padlet for a training activity next month. So Padlet, by the way, is this tool that we're using right now, which is this public bulletin board. Great, fantastic. Okay, in fact, that's next month, so that's within much shorter than 90 days. Good. So here's the thing. So let me talk about this idea around innovation called a jugaad innovation. And a jugaad innovation is an Indian Hindi, I think it's Hindi term. And jugaad innovation, the concept is that you innovate with just what you've got available. So you don't necessarily have all the resources to create a proper combustion engine. So you just put it together using whatever you've got, like a tin can and a bucket and whatever you need to create your pipes. It's this concept that you just make do with what you've got. And sometimes that means that you actually innovate faster and you just get things done because you actually don't have resources. So, and there are entire books now written about how jugaad innovation can be used by Western organizations, Western businesses, who tend to have an abundance of riches. And because they've got that abundance of riches, it sometimes means that they're always fighting over, and they've got these resources, they're always fighting over how best to allocate the resources, and they need more money or they need more time, and they haven't got enough, or they're either complaining they haven't got enough, or they're figuring out how to allocate them effectively. Whereas if you took the jugaad approach where you said, look, let's just actually reduce the resources that we've got, what could we do? Then things happen faster. So the idea behind this jugaad innovation, as applied to the idea that we're going to do now, is you say, well, what if I had less time? Or what if I had less money? Or what if I'd had fewer people or other resources to work on this project? Because it's very easy for a project to become fat and bloated when you've got a whole bunch of resources. So, and what difference would it make if we were able to actually eliminate some of the resources? So for the purpose of today's activity, let's say time. So I asked you, what would you like to achieve in the next 90 days? And you've shared your ideas there, which is great. But what if you said, no, I'm not going to do that. Let's not look at the next 90 days. What if I said to you, how could you achieve it in 9 days? So what would you have to do there? So let's go back to our list, and this doesn't have to be like, not everybody has to respond to this, but let's have a look. So we've got, so we've got 6 people here who've responded. So for example, if I had a goal to publish a book before Christmas or before the end of the year, well, what if I had to do it in 9 days? Now, it's just not feasible for me to write and publish a whole book in 9 days. But maybe it is. Maybe because I've got some audio programs from podcast recordings, pretty much got them all transcribed. I reckon I could find somebody online who could knock that together into a book and have it ready to go in 9 days. Now, it wouldn't be in a printed book. It may be the ebook version. Maybe that's good enough. Or maybe I just get somebody to design a really great book cover and publish that. And that could be good enough for now. Because what's the purpose of me publishing a book? It's I don't want to sell the book. I want to use it to increase my authority and credibility. And maybe the book cover is enough for the moment. What's another option for me? Maybe instead of having a book published, I could definitely take a segment of that book and publish it as a special report or a white paper. And I could certainly go to my designer and get him to pretty it up and create a really great PDF white paper in the next 9 days. That would be it would be worthwhile. It would be adding to my authority and credibility. Okay, so that's the idea here. So let's see how you go. So Philippe's already responded, saying I can publish 2 articles in 9 days. Yeah, great. Okay, absolutely. So what else? So what Philippe's done is saying instead of having a whole bunch of articles for the next 90 days, let's look at 2. What's another one? So we've got a training activity next month. Great. I think that's an easy one to do. But let's say you didn't have a training activity coming up. Well, what could you do? Maybe if that was one of your goals and you wanted to use Padlet, then maybe you'd run a webinar where you use Padlet. For example, in our business accelerators program, which we're starting up next week, one of the things we're going to do is use Padlet. Even though it's an in-person program, we're going to have Padlet up on the big projector screen. And when we get people working in groups together, we can ask them to pull out their smartphone and any ideas that they've got, share them using this Padlet tool, and then that would get then everyone can see the ideas. Okay, what else? So you don't have to necessarily implement the ideas. For today, I just want you to be able to just think about them. Okay, and just think about your process of going from a 90-day project, which might have been ambitious at that time, to do the Jugaad idea and bring it back to if I had to do it in 9 days, what could I do that would make it worthwhile? And part of this is you go, okay, well, fonts and margins aren't as important anymore. All I've got to do is get it out there. Okay. All right, good. So again, like these ideas you don't necessarily have to implement, but it's worthwhile going through that exercise. Okay, so that's a really useful exercise for you to do all the time, for yourself and for your team as well. Let's continue. Let's look at this third area. And the third area is about technology and trends. And this is, so we talked about your people first, who are the engine room of your business. We've talked about the tools and resources that you use, the systems and processes in your business. And the third thing, which is vitally important in today's world, is understanding the broader context, so understanding where your business operates. So let me just share with you one exercise that I think is really valuable for you to use for yourself and within your team, if you have a team that you meet with regularly. And it's this idea of looking at technology and trends that you see elsewhere and connecting them up. So I've done a lot of work with financial planners and financial advisors recently, and some coming up. And so when I talk to them, we look at the way that maybe financial advice is going to change in the next 5 to 10 years because of some of this technology. For example, big data is the idea that now there's a whole bunch of like millions of data points from millions of people around the world, and that artificial intelligence software can use to generate financial advice. In fact, in the industry, it's called robo-advice, the idea that financial advisors, part of their job may be replaced by artificial intelligence software that can offer better financial investment advice than they can. Then you have, remember Pokemon Go, which had a brief craze last year? Well, this idea of people doing games. So when Pokemon Go was popular, there were a whole bunch of lazy teenagers who got off their couch and they were walking around doing 10,000 plus steps a day so they could chase these imaginary Pokemon characters. So is there a way that you could gamify helping people achieve their financial goals? So that's something that people are looking at quite seriously. What about virtual reality, where you upload a virtual model of yourself into your ideal life 30 years or 40 years in the future to see what your future life would look like if you followed your financial plan? And maybe there's the penalty version where you can see what your life would look like if you didn't follow that financial plan. But virtual reality at the moment is still in its very early days, very basic days, but it's improving very rapidly. What about augmented reality? Augmented reality is the idea, the opposite of virtual reality. So virtual reality is you go into an imaginary world. Augmented reality is where you're walking around the real world, but your contact lenses or your glasses give you information about things that you're doing in the real world. So you could be looking at buying something, it's shoes, technology, a car, whatever, and automatically your glasses or your contact lenses, or maybe the first version is you hold up your phone to the device and to the object that you're thinking of buying, and it tells you whether buying that is within your budget or it's going to break your budget based on the financial plan that you've set up for yourself. So all of that technology exists at the moment, is not connected the same way. And then slightly more radical, or a little bit further in the future, is the idea of a DNA analysis and using that to make predictions about people's life and lifestyle, and then using that to design a financial plan based on a fetus in the womb before they're even born. Maybe you'll be able to create a financial plan for them. So this is some of the technology that's affecting financial planners and that industry. So the same is true for any industry. There's some technology that you might see that seems unrelated, but there may be a way that you can connect it. And this is one of the exercises I do when I run innovation workshops with clients. I get them to do this exercise and encourage them to do it regularly with their team. Okay, so, those three things that we talked about, your talent, your tools, and your technology and trends. So I'd love you to take those ideas and put them into action. Now, the first one, I didn't give you particularly practical, I didn't give you any practical idea around that. I hope I did for the second one, because that idea of taking the Jugaad innovation and taking resources away is something you can definitely do within your business and your team. And this idea of connection is also something you can do with your business and your team. Jay Summit, who wrote this book, Disrupt Yourself, talks about disruption, and he says disruption creates threats, but every threat is also an opportunity in disguise. So the real question is, are you willing to commit to it? And really, how much time are you willing to spend on this? I want to run a quick poll here, just to get an idea, because you've seen some of the three big things that will help you with your business, which are your talent, your tools, and the trends. But how much time are you willing to invest in this? Let me just run this poll here. I'm just curious to know, having given you a bit of this perspective. Okay, thank you for voting quickly. Okay, let me share the results, because most people have voted now. Yeah, okay, so I think it's really pleasing to see that most people, like 54%, are saying up to a day per month. And I think for most businesses, that's not bad. I reckon that's a good thing to aim for, because a day a month is, if you say a typical month has 20 working days, a day a month means that you're giving 5% of your time to looking at business growth and innovation. And when you think about 5%, it's not that much. And I reckon if you're looking at, it's really interesting that a quarter of the people here are saying more than a week per month. That's a big commitment. If you can do it, absolutely, more power to you for doing that. I reckon you should aim for somewhere between, I reckon about a day a month is about right for most busy businesses. So the way you do that will vary, and it may not mean that you spend one day the whole day every month. It may be that you break it up, a couple of hours every week, and you can figure out what's right for your business. Just before we finish up, let me finish by telling you about the Business Accelerators program that Shane and I are running. We're running it it's a half day a month. So if you're going to commit a day a month, well, maybe half a day a month you can commit with us. The idea is that it's roughly a half a day a month. It's every second Friday, and you get together. So we get together a group of people who are like-minded business leaders who want to stay ahead of the game. That's who we're aiming for. So it's not for everybody, but it's for those people who are willing to, who understand the need to change and innovate, and who want to get together with other people like that. So we're going to have broadly, there'll be a workshop before morning tea, and then after morning tea it'll be shifting to mentoring and coaching, which is like Shane's a master at that. So we'll have things like hot seats, we'll have great case studies, and the idea is that we build up a community of like-minded business people, and the idea is that you walk away with practical ideas. Like even today in a half-hour webinar, I hope you've got at least one practical idea that you can take away and put into practice. So we're running them in Perth to start with, and on the second Friday of every month. The first one's coming up next week. Actually, the first one's already full, so we're not taking any more places for that. But if you are in Perth and you're interested in finding out more, I'd be very happy to offer you a complimentary ticket to come to one of our next sessions. So if you're interested in that, please let me know. As I said, the first one's full, so I'm not really pushing that too hard. But whether you do that or not, and I know for some people that's not practical because you're not in Perth or the timing may not work, but whether you do that or not, my last message for you is to do something. Start before you're ready. Don't wait for all the ducks to line up in a row and for the world to be ready for you. The world's not going to stop until you're ready. You just got to get going, get started, and figure out how you're going to come to the decision point so that you can accelerate your business growth, because there are huge opportunities right now for businesses and leaders who take advantage of this world that's a little bit volatile, it's a little bit disruptive. It creates huge opportunities for us, but not for everybody, only the ones who want to stay ahead of the game. Thanks everyone for coming to this webinar. As you probably know, this is a webinar series, so if you'd like to register for future webinars, and if you're already watching this live, then you don't need to do anything. You'll automatically get the notice of future webinars. But if you're watching the recording of this, then do go to gihanpereira.com and register. It's free to register, and I hope you get value from each of the webinars. Thanks everyone, and bye for now.